Okay, I want to do a quick little podcast to clarify a few things. I was going over the podcast I just did, and I realized there are a couple things that weren't real clear and deserved a little better attention. So here we go. One of them is why we need to run our bash RC file or our bash profile in a certain way. If you recall from looking at our bash profile, I was looking at EC2 users bash profile, or bash RC actually. If you recall, when we were looking at this, we had this dot character that I said caused it to run in the same shell instead of running in a subshell. And that's important because if it ran in a subshell, the things it set wouldn't be propagated back up to the parent shell. Well, I want to demonstrate that because I don't think I really did that justice. Plus, I saw a couple of enterprising young, or in some cases not so young, students try to do something with setting some environment variables in a file and then not getting them set properly. So for example, in one of the classes I was teaching, I asked the students to set a bunch of environment variables in order to make something easier for us a little later on, and some of the enterprising students decided that they needed to do that in a file because it'd be easier that way. So they created some file, that something like set env.sh, and in that file they said, env1 environment variable 1 equals rich, env2 equals is, and env3 equals the best. So just so we can make sure that this is running, because we run this script as is, we're not going to see any output. So just so we can make sure it's running, we'll put an echo statement, echo setting up environment. So make it executable. Alright, so now if we run the command, well first let's echo env1 to show that there's nothing in there. So right now the variable is empty. In theory, if we run our script, right, /set env.sh, we run that, hey, it set up our environment, but then if we look at our variable again, there's nothing there, right? But we just ran the script to set up our environment, right? It says right there. Oh, I guess you can't see me pointing with my finger. Let me move the mouse down here. It says right here, env1 equals rich. Well, the problem was the script to set the variables ran in a subshell, and those changes did not get propagated back up to the parent shell. So as we just said a minute ago, we need to put a dot in front of running that command to cause it to run in the same shell. So if we do this, it ran in the same shell, and now if I echo env1, it will contain something. So in summary, if you are setting environment variables in a shell script that you want to persist in the parent script, such as we do in this case, you need to run it with a dot. Alright, another thing I wanted to talk about was the IFS, the input field separator. I don't even know if it prints anything out. By default, I said it was white space characters. So if we wanted to let me see, let's create a file by IFS file. And this file is going to have some records. Record 1, rich, 6, 7, 8, T. Record 2, Dave, 899B. Record 3, John, 898, F. Right? So assume I have some records like that. The input field separator being the white space as the default. So if I do something like, what am I trying to do? If I do a for loop, I think. So let's see. Yeah, for I in cat IFS file. Oh, all right. Do echo $I, done. that prints each item on a separate line, but that's probably not what I want to do. I probably want to process each line individually. So let me reiterate that. With our input field separator set to the default value, each record in our file, which our records were space delimited, each record was separated into its component parts and processed through the for loop. I more than likely want to process the entire record at one time. So in that case, I need to set the IFS to be the new line. So I always like to save my old IFS just in case I need to reset it later, because I don't know if there's a way to reset it. I'm sure there probably is, but this is what I've always done. And I set the IFS to a new line, right? So now with the new input field separator, if I run my for loop, I should, cross your fingers so I don't look like a fool, I should get each record printed out instead of the individual entries. So that's something that you can do to save yourself some time, because if you didn't know you could do that and you're trying to process the records, you're probably going to write your scripting logic differently, and now you can do it in the manner that you probably would expect to do. So yeah, I think that's all I want to say about that. I'm trying to think. I want to say something else about that, but I'm trying to decide if it's important or not. Yeah, I guess not. So I'll say it anyway. So in this case, we're just printing out the entire record. But what you could do is, you could further process the record. Once you get inside the for loop, you could do something like, record num equals echo $I pipe into cut dash F1. And then echo $record num. So once you get inside your for loop, then you can do some extra processing. So I guess I need to put the delimiter with that. Dash F1, command not found. Oh, I need to put some slashes. So we do things at the shell prompt, they get a little more complex. So that's not what I wanted either. Pipe into. Oh, I need backticks. I probably should plan a little more carefully before I start these stupid things. Cut no such file or directory. Alright, so there we go. I finally got what I wanted. So here I'm just showing you how you can, once you get inside your for loop, you could run some commands to process the record individually. So that was that.